wait for Holly to move back. Oh, what happened? One, thank you. Strider, of course. So I do love them very much. Give them apples, help them move stuff. You noticed.
It's going.
She said nobody would notice. I get manicures, yes. But I said just get clear. She's like, nobody will notice. I'll be glad to tell her that you noticed. Well, she loves getting petties, and so like, oh come, let's get a manicure because you shake people's hands all the time and whatnot. Well, I've had pedicures before as well. I'm really picky. Like pedicures, so I'll get manicures. So she loves it. Like she loves pedicures. She'll be glad they noticed, I guess. All right. It looks like we have everybody on council that's going to be here tonight, and so let's just. I'd like to open this. I would now like to call the October 12th, 2021 Longmont City Council regular session to order. I know. Sorry. Can I get the roll call, please? And yep.
Mayor Bagley is absent. Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez.
Here.
Council members Christensen. Here. Hidalgo Faring.
Here.
Martin. Here. Peck. Here. Waters. Here. Mayor Pro Tem, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We'll now do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you very much. I think as everybody just heard, the mayor is not present tonight, so I'll be running the festivities. This is a regular session, so we'll be having a first call invited to be heard. Anybody wishing to speak at first call, public invited to be heard, will need to add his or her name to the list outside, which I do have a copy of. There's one person on the list so far. At this time, we will go to the approval of minutes. September 14th, 2021, regular session minutes. Can I get a motion? All right, it sounds like Councilmember Waters moved approval with a second by Councilmember Peck. All those in favor say yay. Yay. All those opposed say nay. And sorry, I'm actually going by the screen that we get to use that Mayor Bagley doesn't like to talk about. So that is approved unanimously with Mayor Bagley absent. We also have minutes from September 28th, 2021, regular session minutes for approval. Can I get a motion, please? So moved by Councilmember Peck, seconded by Councilmember Waters. Can I get a vote, please? All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. The motion passes 6-0 with Mayor Bagley absent. So the September 28th, 2021 regular session minutes are approved. At this time, we will now move on to agenda revisions and submissions of documents and motions to direct the city manager to add agenda items to future agenda items or future agendas. It looks like first up is Councilmember Peck. Let me get your mic on there for you. There you go.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I would like to move to direct staff that we have a another presentation by the Early Childhood Coalition on, now that we are done with the CARES Act for the most, that I would like to, for council to hear what path they are going to go on and what issues they're going to bring up to keep us all informed of the Early Childhood Coalition.
All right, there's been a motion for an additional update by the Early Childhood Education Commission. Can you please repeat?
It's the Early Childhood Coalition and,
Or coalition?
yeah. So,
The specific update you requested, please.
okay. I wasn't able to attend the Monday meeting of the Early Childhood Coalition. I have attended several of them. But the agenda that I noticed was that they were going to discuss a special district for early childhood education. And not only myself, but I think that all of council should hear what that discussion entails, and are we going to move forward? Are they planning to move forward with it?
Okay, just to clarify, so it's a motion to have an update from the Early Childhood Coalition to specify about a special district for preschool education.
Just to hear what that discussion was about, and I think all of city council should be informed of how the Early Childhood Coalition plans to move forward.
Okay, and that was, the motion was made by Councilmember Peck and seconded by Councilmember Hidalgo Faring. Now, discussion. First up, we have Councilmember Christensen.
Okay, actually, I was going to ask something of my own. Well, I do think this is something that is part of council's work plan. I think that if another group is planning to, outside of council, and they're outside of council, if they're planning to do something like that, we need to understand what it is and have some input as a whole, because it's doesn't involve all of council, and I think, it's part of our work plan, and I think we need to hear something about what it's about, because otherwise it's, our city staff is working in one direction, city council's working in another direction, and I think we all need to be working together. So I think it's a good idea.
All right, thank you very much. Next up would be Councilmember Martin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just to clarify, this would be an invitation, correct? Because the Early Childhood Coalition is not an organization under the city's purview. Can I get some clarification on that? I don't think we get to command them.
We're not commanding. They have
Oops,
given us
sorry, just a second,
updates before.
sorry.
Okay, sorry.
I appreciate your willingness. Yeah, thank you. Yes, I believe that's accurate in the sense that the Early Childhood Coalition is not specifically a board or commission under the purview of the city council, much less the city. And so I would say that is pertinent. Do you have
Yeah.
other things to say?
Well, so would you accept a friendly amendment to say to invite the Early Childhood Coalition to give a second report?
The answer is yes, according to Councilmember Peck. You're good? Okay, thank you. I will second that. So I'll second the amendment. Councilmember Waters, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Pro Tem. I was in the meeting yesterday, both the coalition meeting and the management team meeting. And I'm certain that the coalition members would be happy to update the council anytime in terms of the status of the work. In terms of the council work plan, I'm not certain what the council work plan is for early childhood. I know we have work going on, but it would be helpful, since there's references to the council work plan, what that might be with respect to early childhood. I will say that what you're going to hear from the coalition is that there is no one in that group could tell you what the intent is in terms of proposing a special district or not to the county or to the public. It's been on the agenda as a topic of conversation for 2 years with the question, is that something that makes sense in the post-pandemic future? And I don't know if it does or not, but that group is thinking not just about that, but reimagining what child care would look like in the post-pandemic future. And I will say they have a lot of work to do. And an invitation, they would be happy to present. I do think if this group gets in the way of the progress of that group, we should be ashamed of ourselves. They got a lot to do. It's a bunch of volunteers. And to have to spend time organizing a presentation when people could dial into the meeting and listen and be part of the conversation seems to me to not necessarily be the best use of their time. It's a public meeting. We can get access to it the second Monday of every month. If we don't, it's on us, not on them. And to add to their one more task for them doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, to a group of volunteers trying to carry the water for what we said as an objective a couple years ago and really never developed a work plan for.
All right, thank you very much. Just a couple comments in the sense that I think when we start talking about taxable districts, that it is, a use of public good to have that conversation, not just as, special interest groups, but as a city council. And so I think that bringing it forward sooner than later is probably a good conversation to have. That's all I have to say. And I'm not saying one thing or other about that, but I do know that Councilmember Hidalgo-Faring would like to say something. So there you go.
Great. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I had a few questions. The reason why I seconded this is really I wanted to know more and the rationale for bringing up this motion. I had a few questions on, was this coalition created as part of the work plan? That looks like I got my answer. So are we looking then, would it be in the best interest of the coalition and efforts being made to combine forces? Would it benefit them to have us as an entity provide commitment to support their efforts, and and know what's going on and how can we help? And then I do want to know specifically what are we doing to address the council work plan on early childhood education? Are we, is it something I missed? I mean, I need to do a deeper dive and read. I was trying to figure out where this all fits in. Where do we fit in with this, and what could we do to kind of combine efforts if it's in the best interest of the coalition and for our community as well? So it was a few questions, but maybe just think about as we proceed forward. But I did get some of my answers, so thank you for that.
All right, Councilmember Waters.
Thanks, Mayor Pro Tem. Just to be clear, we, in the Community Services Department, Christina Pacheco-Sims and Olga Bermudez, they have a work plan. The Bright Eyes Coalition, is part of that work plan. They do a lot in the name and in the interest of early child. But that's not a council work plan. So there is work that I'm certain shows up in a work plan. We set an objective a few years ago, and work has been organized because I think inspired by the objective, but it's not a council work plan. I will say to the Mayor Pro Tem and to the other council members, I'm going to encourage, if you want to invite the coalition to talk about the status of the work, that's great. I think it's a distraction to them and the work they have to get done. But to put them on the spot to talk about potential special districts before they're ready to talk about special districts, my encouragement to them is to not talk with us about that. There is no decision that's been made. We're far from bringing a proposal to anybody. And if a proposal would be crafted, it wouldn't be presented to city councils anyway. I suspect it would be presented at a different level. But it will do a disservice to good people who have donated their time to work on this to put them on the spot for that question at this point in time.
All right, thank you very much. Next to Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I agree with Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez. Why not get involved early rather than later? This is why would we not want to work together? Why? No one is actually trying to put anyone on the spot. And while it is supposedly open, you have to know that it exists, and you have to get in on a Zoom meeting. And the management team is not a public meeting. So anyway, I'm just saying this. I don't think any intention is made to put anyone on the spot or any of that. I think we could be helpful to them. They could be helpful to us. We could all work together. This would be a good thing. We all want to do that, but we have, on our council, we have someone who ran a daycare business and certainly understands it. We have a teacher who deals with early childhood education. We have someone who spent many, many years in education. I think we have expertise on this panel that we could be supporting them. And I don't understand why we would not want to do that, and I don't understand why anyone would take this as a something that is interfering with them or putting them on the spot. I don't think it's intended to do that at all.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Peck.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. The Early Childhood Coalition can deny the invite or not. But if we do have staff in that meeting, if we do have council people in that meeting, then I think that we do need to get a total update on what is going on. If it is an organization outside of city council, then city council members should not be actually speaking for them. I would like to hear what the Early Childhood Coalition and the chair of that has to say, and how do we all move forward together, because it is part of our vision. So if they deny the invitation, that's fine. If they don't, it's even better. So I call the vote.
Okay, the question has been called. There are still speakers in the queue. I'd prefer to listen to the speakers, but the question has been called. So we'll take a vote on the motion. On the question for the motion, yes. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. Nay. Can we, I'm sorry. I'm not that good at listening to voices, I guess. Can we actually press the buttons? The question fails. Looks like 2-4 with council members Martin, Rodriguez, Hidalgo, Faring, and Waters against. So we will continue with debate. That brings us to Councilmember Waters, it appears. Nope, what was that number? C3? Yep, that's you. All right, good.
Yeah, my bad. This is not a question of whether or not, if there's an invitation from the council to come and update the council on the work, then they're going to do that. To suggest that because I'm involved, well, that's what I heard. If council members are involved in meetings, I meet with folks all over town. So do you, and to try to hook that into accountability for them just seems to be a reach. They'll be delighted, I'm sure, to come and present. What I'm suggesting is, if you care about a long-term future for a more robust, enlightened, informed approach to childcare and early childhood education, to call or push the question on special districts before anybody's ready to talk about that, and I don't know that they'll ever be ready to talk about that, is a mistake if that's the expectation. If it's simply a progress report, you're going to hear much the same thing you heard last time, because there hasn't been a lot of progress since then, except the governor's event, which you were all invited to.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Waters. Councilmember Martin, looks like you're next. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say that I'm going to vote no on this at this time. We heard a lot of talk that made it sound like the initial idea was that the council had some sort of authority over this organization, which it does not. And I believe the usual thing in situations like this is that when the organization would like to have the attention of council, the organization would ask to present before council. I am certain that any organization that is focused on early childhood education and has the governor's attention is doing pretty well by itself and will know when it is ready to report. So I'm going to go vote against it just because they're free to come forward anytime they want. And I don't like the idea of putting pressure on them to do it, especially this close to an election when the council may turn over. So I'm going to vote no.
All right. Thank you very much. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I actually think that on a statewide basis, a great many things have been done, which because I'm on Colorado Municipal League and I'm on the county, the Boulder County Consortium of Cities. There are a lot of things, and there are a lot of things that were mentioned that have been done in the last year, 2 years, 3 years maybe, and also especially in the last year that are helpful to our efforts and especially, of course, the Early Childhood Coalition, who is really the ones doing the work for this. So I think it would be useful to have them come and give us an update on things that have been improved on a statewide basis for early childhood caretakers and preschool people, and the difference between preschool and childcare should not be ignored. They're two very different things. So, as we've said, they can come if they want to. They don't have to, certainly. But, this is just an invitation for them to update us so that we can all work together. Anyway, I really think that there are so many things that our state legislators have done because they understand how important this is. And we have an excellent opportunity because we have a governor who honestly understands this and has been part of daycare since he was a baby. So, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I'm just going to weigh in with a couple things here real quick in the sense that I feel this is a procedural question, and so I have a question for city staff. My understanding is there's been no city council motion to direct staff to build an ordinance that would talk about a special district for preschool education. Is that correct?
That's correct. There has not been anything to build an ordinance for that.
Has there been work by city staff to build an ordinance for that?
I am not aware of working on an ordinance to create a special district. We have been working in terms of the numbers and the data, trying to understand what the scope of the issue is. And if council will recall, in the budget, we allocated $500,000 so that we could really get into the data work with what work cities, or the data work that we need to do to figure out what the scope of the situation is, more detail, and then we had some additional funds to operationalize some things if needed, but we haven't gone beyond that.
Okay. So the direction hasn't been there for staff to bring back an ordinance for a potential special district for preschool education.
Correct. I can't remember where there was a vote or anything like that.
Okay, I just was hoping to clarify that point. As such, I am not necessarily ready personally. Council members obviously can vote how they would like to, but I'm not going to necessarily bring back the ECC, the Early Childhood Coalition, on this item until there's a true proposal. And as such, I probably won't be voting for it. But at the same time, it's time to vote on the motion. And sorry, let me go back to bring it. The motion was to have the Early Childhood Coalition come back and report on their work for a special district for preschool education. Am I correct? Okay, that is the vote. Let's have a vote. All those in favor say yay or press yay. All those opposed press nay. And we'll see how the vote goes. Okay, the vote fails with council members Martin, Rodriguez, Hidalgo Faring, and Waters against. Council members Christensen and Peck for. Are there any further agenda revisions and submission of documents? Okay, Councilmember Christensen, you are on.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I would move to direct the city manager to add an item to the agenda. There is no rush on this, but to move the Longmont Economic Development Council back in-house as a branch of city government. Do I have a second?
I'll second that for the discussion.
Yes. Okay. So I would like to discuss this then. About 2015, the City Council voted on an experiment to outsource the economic development of the city to an outside entity. That seemed like a simple idea, which some thought would be clearer for businesses coming to town and more efficient. There are currently 3 employees. We have a very skilled head, Jessica Erickson. All these employees could be bought in-house. Most of the legal work for the Economic Development Council is being done by our legal staff already. Much of the rest of the work is done by our city staff. It doesn't make sense for us to be paying for the rent and many other costs associated with this. The city pays $365,000 every year. PRPA pays a great deal of money. Boulder County pays a great deal of money. All of that could go to the city, and we could have the professional staff, the 3 members of that professional staff move in-house, and it would save a great deal of money. We would gain efficiency. We would gain a great deal of transparency. Right now, nearly a great deal of the money that is going to this organization is coming from private businesses who are paying to join this organization. And with their pay, they get a vote. None of these people have been elected. And if we want transparency, that's what we need, is to have this be a truly transparent organization. In their last report, they stated that their goal was to have at least 50% of their income and their money come from the private source. That means we will completely lose control over our own economic development. Over the years, I have witnessed constant interference in council policy and council elections. If you look at through members of this, not the professional staff, but members of the private businesses involved. And if you look at the Garrettson Open Records request, GERRITSEN, and the Belmont Open Records request, both of which are free and open and available to any citizen of this city who wants it, you can see the degree to which there has been interference with by this group and also by members of City Council in the Affordable Housing Ordinance, in the Metro District Ordinance, in landlord licensing and inspections, and in elections. The high point for me was having a member of this come lecture City Council on how we need to align ourselves with them. They work for us. They are on a one-year contract with us, and we don't work for them. We have many, many agreements with the federal government, the state government, the county government, with all kinds of districts and governments, municipal governments. This is one more agreement that we have. And I think that for them to come tell us to essentially feel that they should be able to order us around is really quite ludicrous. So that is why I'm suggesting this. I have been to numerous presentations and lectures and read a lot, and recently Colorado Municipal League had a presentation on economic development. Recently, the Boulder County Consortium had everybody, all the members in the county, develop or discuss how their economic development teams worked. And none of them work the way we do. So I really do think we need to address this. I think it would be good for the city. I think it would be good for transparency. It would save money, and it would be clearer for the businesses coming to town.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Christensen. So as I hear it, the motion is for the City of Longmont to discontinue its partnership with Longmont Economic Development Partnership, as well as the funding therein, and create its own in-house department to deal for economic development.
No, not exactly. It would
Okay.
be to bring the professionals from that organization into our city government and have it be, as it was a long time ago, part of our city government. Although it has been an outside entity for a long time. But we have inside redevelopment. We need to make it be one thing. Redevelopment and development needs to be simply a branch of city government instead of something that is an outside entity.
So what I am hearing is that you want an economic development group within the city organization,
Yes.
and no longer supporting the LEDP as its own function.
Yes, but all the money that we spend on them would be spent in-house, and also that money from PRPA and from the county would also go into our development group because,
Fair enough. I just don't understand how I stated the motion incorrectly.
okay, well, you said you wanted to, that I
Not
wanted
me.
to eliminate it. I'm sorry. I probably didn't state it very well.
I said just defund and non-partner with.
Well, I would say move the funding, because I don't certainly want us to start from scratch. We don't need to. We have a very qualified professional.
Okay, we're arguing semantics here, but
Yeah,
it's
okay.
basically the same thing. As then
Okay.
we're talking about moving funding or defunding, regardless of what you're talking about, from one organization to another organization,
Okay, I would say transfer funding.
regardless of semantics.
All right. Whatever.
The motion is to move funding from the LEDP to an internal organization that will have to be created, as we don't have one currently existing. As such, thank you for the motion. It appears that Councilmember Waters is next.
Susie, do you want to weigh in? No, you go first. You might answer my question. It won't surprise, it's not going to surprise anybody that I'm going to vote against this. I think it's a really bad idea. In my first meeting as a council member, Jessica Erickson was doing a quarterly report, which she's scheduled to do again on October 26th. And I'm looking forward to that report. And I was probably harder on Jessica than I should have been. I didn't mean to be hard on you, Jessica. I meant to be hard on the data. And because I had all kinds of questions about it. It was new to me, and obviously I've learned something since then, and I've appreciated your response to the questions I had then and every question I've had since then. But one of the things that that was an upshot of that, from my perspective, was a deeper understanding for me on the relationship that the city has to LADP. Certainly, we write a big check to LADP. But in writing that check, we're viewed, and I think we view them as partners. I think we're viewed as partners. And I have to say, when somebody who is a partner comes to that podium and speaks truth to power, we ought to be grateful. And what we're hearing is that somehow is being interpreted as being told what to do. We had the chair of the LADP board come during open forum at our invitation, right? Open to the public. We encourage people to do this. Now we're resenting that they do it. As partners, they came to tell us there's a problem in the community with housing. And we are part of the solution to that problem. And if we talk a lot about wanting to listen. If we're not willing to listen to our partners, who are we going to listen to? They have we're talking about people with a huge stake in Longmont, the members of that board. To suggest there are none of us involved with that is simply not true. I am, and Council Member Martin, are liaisons to the board of directors. We're there every month. They hear from us, we hear from them. And there is honest conversation about if there's resentment because they have a point of view about rental licensing, we ought to listen to the point of view and thank them for sharing it. If you question the productivity of LDP, I challenge any member of this council to point to an example where we would where a city that has been more productive in their economic development efforts than this one has been. So you can interpret somebody speaking truth to power as interference, which was your word. I would think it's the advice of partners to whom we ought to listen. And we ought to thank them for sharing what their experience is in the field. Beyond that, what they bring is they bring multiples of the funding that we put into LEDP. It's called leverage. We're able to take our money, they're able to leverage what we bring to realize the successes that we've enjoyed. And if we think, I have to sit here, if I'm them, and I think the move tonight, the attempt to move this back into the city, the last thing, if I'm them, I would want to do is be partnering with us if we're going to pull the rug out from underneath this effort. We're the last people I'd want to be partnering with if that's the move tonight. So I'm going to vote no. I think it's a bad idea.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Hidalgo Faring.
Thank you. So my concern lies with primarily the impact on our budget and time constraints of staff to bring this back. I was not on council in 2015, so I don't know why the rationale for the split. And I'd really like to hear from staff why that happened to begin with. And, from that perspective, from the city staff perspective, who are in the weeds and doing this work all the time, how is that worked?
Yeah, so I think you actually have to go back before 2015. And so even before I was here, the city of Longmont contributed dollars contractually to Longmont Economic Development Corporation. And what we had in 2012 when I got here, and then subsequently in 2015, is you had Longmont Economic Development Corporation doing their work. You also had components within the city doing some of the redevelopment work and some of the other positions. And so in 2015, what we did is we went through Advanced Longmont 1, where we set we went in and created the strategic plan for economic development. And then what we did is that the city at that point is took some of the other positions we had, we eliminated them internally. We then contracted for the work to be done as we were continuing to move forward, but then we retained some of that work at the same time. And so it really was this partnership that was developed in terms of what we're doing related to Advanced Longmont 1.0, which then created the structure at that point. And then that's when the Economic Development Corporation hired Jessica as the president. During that time when we were creating it, there were some issues. So I got to back up again. Prior to me getting here, council members were voting members on the Economic Development Corporation. There were some legal issues that came up with that, and council members were no longer able to be voting members of the corporation. What we did in the restructuring of this, when we came back together with the new Advanced Longmont plan, is you had the mayor as a liaison to the executive committee. You had 2 council members that were appointed, or the mayor and a council member, but then you actually had 2 voting members on the Economic Development Board, which was Tom Roniotis and myself, and then it's now Dale Rademacher, myself. And we wanted the utilities represented on there because they tended to be a significant component of any economic development partnership we had. That's why those 2 individuals served on that. There are times in the conversation where things show up where it is veering into the city side, and that's where Dale and I recuse ourselves from the votes based on the nature of it. But, so to answer your question, that was a long way to answer it. A, the city's funded it for, I don't know how long. I mean, longer than I've been here. How long? 40. So 40 years is, so the city's funded it for an extended period of time.
Yes.
We restructured based on how it worked with the creation of Advanced Longmont 1.0. That's when the board structure was changed. That's subsequently when they hired the president of the corporation in this. And then we've evolved it. So I don't know if that answers all your questions or if you have more.
So I think about how the community looked like 40 years ago and what it looks like today. It's a lot different. So by, essentially defunding or dismantling this one group and then taking it, absorbing it, would that hinder, prospective businesses coming in? Would that simplify the process? I mean, I really, I have my ideas, but I really want to hear from the people who are in the trenches, who are in the thick of it.
So I've got to give you my perspective based on the different systems that I've worked in. And so when you look at this, coming from a state that has a different funding source for economic development, usually did have economic development corporations involved in that, and it was separate from the city. When you look at what we're talking about now and you look at the money that we're putting in and then the money that's coming in from the private sector, we couldn't fully fund all of the positions with the money that we're putting in now. So it would require additional investment from the city if that were to come about. And beyond that, just looking at what we had to deal with in terms of the housing authority and what you go through, and that's a lot of work. And so what I would say is it would probably cost more, and I'm saying this off the cuff right now. It will cost more. I think something that you see historically is that public-private partnership and economic development tends to work well in other communities, and you see different communities approach it differently. Now, talking about economic development in Boulder County is different as well. It hasn't been until the last year or so where we've seen Boulder probably become more aggressive in that front. Same with the county. If you remember, when we've come with different incentive packages depending on where it is, we don't necessarily have the county supporting our economic development incentive packages when they're in Boulder County, unlike when we had Weld County. Weld County did participate in this. That's a policy choice that they've made. And so when you take all of that into account and you go, well, will it create more work? Yes, it'll create more work. Will it cost more money? Yes, it'll probably cost more money. But at the end of the day, you all set the policy directive, and my job is to implement that policy directive.
Well, I do want to, like I had said last week, we have these plans in place.
Right.
And as we get new people coming on council, and I've heard it in the debates, wanting to come in and dismantle things that were already, that were set in motion long before I was here, long before any of us were here. So it's just, these are things that destroy communities. So we have to be really careful in making sure that, we have our our long-term plan, that we're not derailing from that and the impacts it has on the community, on city staff, and work and that partnerships that we've established. So, you know, I'm not good with this. I'm going to be voting no.
Thank you, Councilmember Hidalgo Faring. Looks like Councilmember Martin, please.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Yeah, I'd just like to say, first of all, that it seems like a very odd thing for an exiting council member to move. I remember during the time that I was had been recruited as a candidate for council 4 years ago in some, being mentored by Councilmember Christensen, and her expressing the idea at that time that all these L agencies had been a mistake and that they should be sucked back into the, what?
Okay, point of order. Please state your point of order.
The comments, oops.
I'm sorry, let me, yeah. There you go.
Thank you. The comments need to be about the issue at hand, not about the person.
Okay, point of order, uphold and sense. Direct all of your comments towards the chair and not towards fellow council members. Please ring back in Councilmember Martin to finish your statements. Thank you.
Thank you. I was not accusing the council member of anything, but nevertheless, I do want to point out that this is an odd time to bring forth such a massive structural change. It would eliminate a check and balance that exists in the city now, where more people have a voice. We have some extremely talented community leaders on the LHA board who are putting a tremendous amount of effort and analysis into their recommendations and effort for the city. If we brought them back in under the auspices of the city, that would all go away. I don't think that they would put nearly as much effort into being as an advisory board if they were even willing to do it. We would lose all of the subscription money that they are paying. So as the city manager pointed out, we wouldn't be able to pay the 4-person staff. We'd have to allocate more money to it. But I think what we'd be losing most of all is the creativity. You know, I have been in a position of negotiating with the LEDP for their support or alternatives for policy positions that I was taking, and I think it was productive. I think the outcome of that negotiation was probably a win-win. And obviously we've had some very effective things come out of this, like Costco, you know, for example, or the continued use of the very problematic technical properties on the west side, all of the A companies that have held those. It's not because the LEDP didn't do it right, it's because that's a problematic industry that struggles, and they're doing a very good job keeping somebody paying the property taxes on those. So I see no problems with the EDP. I'm very happy to be a liaison to them, and I'm certainly not going to vote for this.
Thank you, Councilmember Martin. Just for reference, Councilmember Christensen, you are next. This is your second time to speak on the item and your last time to speak on the item. Thank you.
Okay. The assertion that I am saying that LEDP has not done a good job.
Oops, sorry. Please ring back in. Go ahead.
It's just been asserted that I am suggesting that LEDP has not done a good job. That is not what I am suggesting. I think Jessica Erickson has done a good job. I think the professionals on that, which is Jessica and whoever else is a professional, qualified professional in economic development, should join our city staff. I have repeatedly been told by our city staff that we are doing the legal work and most of the other work for LEDP. So I find it difficult to understand why we would not want them to just join us for greater efficiency and for greater coordination. I have watched in open forums and in public hearings, members of LADP repeatedly come forth to speak against our affordable housing ordinance, to speak for metro districts, to speak against landlord licensing and inspections, to constantly comment upon and try to turn our city, the policy making of this city council into something of more of their liking. That is not, that is members of LEDP. What I am suggesting is that we have now got a situation where the private people involved in this, the private businesses who are involved in this, are becoming more and more of a share, and that means we will lose any control over our own economic development. That's why it needs to be brought in-house. The money that we are getting, that the city is donating, which is $365,000, that PRPA is donating, that Boulder County is donating, can be simply redirected to the city. And yes, I find it difficult to understand. When I first came on this board in 2013, we had a small outsourced economic development group. The man who headed it, who was told, well, I'm not going to get into that, but I looked at how many jobs were actually created. It was a town of 80,000 people at the time, and there were about 24 jobs created over the course of 2 years. I don't think that's a good record. We are much better than that. Jessica has done a very good job. What I am suggesting is that can be done in-house in a more coordinated way and in a stronger and heartier way without the same wealthy elite who have always run the city taking over a larger and larger share of our economic development. That's all I'm suggesting.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Christensen. I will be calling on Councilmember Peck next. Just a reminder, this is your second and last time to comment on this item before we vote.
Thank you. I just have a question. It is my understanding that the divisions within the city are charged for staff time to work. I forget what that fee is. It's the one that we took away from the airport.
The ATF?
The ATF. Thank you very much. So my question is, because I do know that the city staff puts an awful lot of time into the economic development work, is LEDP paying us, or are we charging LEDP for staff time?
No, because we don't charge within the general fund via an ATF, and that's a general fund expense. And so it's only when we do work for enterprise funds where we have the ATF come into it. So water, wastewater, golf, airport, those are enterprise funds, and that's where we do charge the ATF. But when it's within the general fund, we don't do it. For example, the general fund doesn't have an ATF for legal time for operations that we have within that. So recreation or the city manager's office, the things that he does for me, there's not an ATF because it's all general fund dollars that we're using.
Okay. So this is just a thought. We are partnering with them for the amount of money that Councilwoman Christensen just stated, and we are giving them staff time. I understand that this is for development within the city, but with all of the conversation going around on other issues that council comes up with about not overloading staff, I think that it might be something we should reconsider to have them reimburse us for the staff time spent on some of the things that, some of the parts of the contractual agreements that we have that their staff cannot do. I hope I'm making sense. Are we giving them free staff time and paying them $365,000 a year?
Not necessarily. So when we talk about what we do when we get involved, and so I will use Smuckers for example.
Okay.
In that, so we engage in the conversation because much of what we do and much of the legal work is really about what we're doing to what we're providing to the company for them to locate here.
Okay.
And so that is a contractual agreement between the city and the prospective company. And so that is very much city work. And so when we were talking to Smuckers, we had people from LPC there because we were talking about the what we needed to do from an electrical component, or someone from water because there was a significant conversation about water rights. And so those very much are city conversations in terms of what we're doing.
You answered it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Peck. Just a reminder, Councilmember Waters, this is your second time speaking on the motion, and so this will be your last time speaking on the motion. Thank you.
I get that. Second and last. Just the idea that somehow moving LEDP inside the organization would reduce the burden on staff time is absurd. Whether they're inside or outside, whatever requirements are of staff time would be the same, whether they're inside the organization or outside the organization. The thought that we would charge LEDP for the time of Longmont staff when the objective of Longmont staff is to help bring new business to town is equally absurd. We're in this together to have successful economic development efforts. Now, if the work of the staff was to benefit members of the LEDP board or one of the corporations in some way, I think that's a different story, but that's not what it's about. It's about bringing new opportunity, new jobs, the tide that raises all boats to Longmont. And every dollar that's spent, I don't care how much time staff spends, is all for the same purpose, whether they're billing it to an LEDP cost center or a staff cost center. And the benefit is the Longmont, our tax base and our residents. So that, I mean, whatever the legal, how much of the legal time, Eugene wouldn't spend any less time if they're inside or outside, number one. Number two, we've had some conversation here. I know it's kind of the defining in many ways, kind of framework for LEDP and I think our Chamber of Commerce, the whole concept of the new localism. In my mind, if we were gonna spend better time spent than this conversation would be to have a seminar. Let's have a tutorial on what that concept is, what the framework is, and what it means, and what it looks like when folks like us, government, bureaucracies that are pretty rigid, not real flexible, learn how to take advantage of the IQ points.
Point of order has been raised. What is that point of order? Please ring in so I can recognize you. Councilmember Peck.
The conversation is going off of the subject, and it is beginning to lecture council rather than just making
I'm going
a
to finish my
point
statement.
about the motion.
Thank you, Councilmember Peck. I disagree with your point of order. It has been overruled. Councilmember Waters, please continue, but I
Be
guess
brief?
wrap it up.
Yep. I'll be as brief as I can. I didn't bring the topic up, so I'm going to finish saying what I had to say. It would be in our interest to learn something about the new localism. We've arrived at a conclusion. I don't know how much knowledge we have that supports the conclusion that somehow what we're trying to do is misguided. But I do believe the cities that figure out how to take advantage of public-private, goodwill, resources, IQ points will win in the post-pandemic future, and we ought to get smarter about how to do that, in my opinion, as a council and as an organization. The last thing I would say, there was a reference to the input that we've received on the IZ, the inclusionary housing ordinance, and other policy decisions. In my mind, what we ended up with the inclusionary housing ordinance was better, way better, because of the input we got from the private sector, from those who know something about developing the ground and know something about building houses. The fact that we listened and we put together a package, we ought to be proud of ourselves for that and appreciate the input that we got. And when they come and they say to us, I am not going to stand with bad policy, I think we ought to thank them for that, to say, this is not going to help. You're going to create new problems, and the ones we're going to create are worse than the ones we're trying to solve now. That would be the effect of bad policy. And what we've heard from time to time is, when you're headed down the path toward drafting bad policy, you're going to hear from us, and I think we ought to continue to hear from them as partners.
Thank you, Councilmember Waters. I will just chime in real quickly here, and that I think that effective governing does take in many points of view. I think that it has been, generally speaking, a very productive partnership between the city and the LEDP. I think that we need to have those points of view. And at the end of the day, the city council are the arbiters. We do get to decide whether we say partner with private industry, or we decide not to. I think we've always had that opportunity when we've been in executive session, which most people don't get to see, and people probably feel somewhat rightfully shut out of those sessions. But at the end of the day, you elect us, and I think it would feel better for you to know that there are outside points of view, not a centralized planning commission that says, hey, we get to decide. And yes, the city council gets to decide in concept, but having an outside voice like the LEDP or the LDDA, and as far as downtown is concerned, and hopefully we see some of these partnerships come to fruition in other parts of the city, not just the downtown, because the city council is looking at so many different things, not just downtown or North Main or South Main or the Hover District, Southwest Longmont, yada, yada, yada. And so I don't think it's appropriate necessarily for us to centralize all this power within the city government. And so I'll also be voting against this motion. But as such, the motion is now called to direct staff to add agenda item to move the LEDP back in-house as a branch of city government based on specifically what is stated on our screens here. So all those in favor push yay, all those against push nay. Oh, you got it. Sorry. My bad.
That's okay, I'll get it back.
You got it. All right, the motion fails 5-1 with council members Martin, Rodriguez, Hidalgo Faring, Peck, and Waters against, and council member Christensen for. Thank you very much. Very good comments and very good things to consider for the next council after November 2nd. Now, Clerk Quintana, is there any other agenda revisions at this time?
There are not, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you very much. Now we'll move on to the city manager's report on COVID-19.
Mayor, Council, sorry, I had to step out earlier. We had an outage that was hitting some of our electric outage. It was hitting some of our housing authority properties. So we had to kind of figure that one out real fast. But it looks like they know what it is and they're working on it. So I'm going to just go through this pretty quickly. When you talk about it, you can see a slight uptick in the number of cases in the 7-day cumulative case rate per 100,000. Again, not at the peak where we were, but we're seeing that move up. Again, this is bouncing all over the place in terms of Front Range and what we're seeing. So now you can see Boulder going up, but Broomfield, Grand are going down, and everyone else is going up. And if you can remember the last few times, sometimes they're in green, sometimes they're in red, and we're seeing it move around. And I think it's because when you go back to this chart, you can kind of see how it's ping-ponging on this. Case trends among age groups, you can generally see, and my eyes are really bad right now, but we see some increases in the 75 plus, but generally as a county, they're moving down. Again, you know, we kind of talked about this. Longmont is still 40% of the cases in Boulder County, with Boulder 22% of the cases. You know, part of when you look at that and what I'm hearing in the conversations, CU had a vaccine mandate. And so I think they're up to like 90+% of their students and faculty are vaccinated, and we saw that really drive the numbers. I asked the question of the county, well, what does it look like by age group in Longmont? And so they got this to me, and what I want is, this is per 100,000. And so generally what we're looking at in this number is the trend and seeing what's happening. And so the colors aren't great in this, in the chart that they gave me. But what you can see is that the 12 to 17-year-olds were a significant part of the increase recently. The good news is we're seeing everything trend down except for the 23 to 24. When we went in and started looking at it, you can definitely see the growth there. This is the chart that you've seen before when we talk about our wastewater sampling and what that looks like. And so if you remember me talking about that peak and what we were seeing, this is the peak. And what we wanted to wait and see is, were we going to see that flatten out over time, or we're going to see it decrease? And so we've seen it decrease, and that's a good thing, because what we're looking at is the movement in this. The blue line are the cases, and so when you talk about the 40% and what that really looks like in Longmont, and then you look at this data, it pretty much, this data is forecast that we're going to do that. And then when you look at where the populations are, and so we're going to try to continue to get these localized reports in terms of the numbers. When we went in, let me go back to this one. When we went in and really started looking at the numbers and what that means, when you start breaking it down into percentages, and Mariah and I are going to work on having a different chart hopefully for next week, but you can really see that when you start seeing this kind of movement in this case, you take those percentages and how it then starts impacting the hospitals. So once again, some movement, not a lot. In the north central region, ICU bed availability increased to 11%. It was at 9% before. So you can still see the press there. Surge bed availability is 11%. That's holding pretty steady. And then tight staffing is what they're seeing in the north central region. 30% was significant staff shortages. So that's actually up from 23% last time. And again, you're not only looking at bed availability, you're looking at staffing availability, because you may have the beds, but you may not have the staff, and so you can't put people in them. And then they're continuing to their transfer plan across the state. And so those are the issues that continue to challenge. Again, it's not all COVID. And so it really is, you have your normal diseases that come into play, whether it's heart attacks, strokes, cancer, and those types of things. And when you layer COVID on top of it, it's really what's throwing these systems into these different pieces. And then you can see number of cases, we continue to exceed the epi capacity in the county. And then you can see the deaths that are continuing, you know, sort of a mix of long-term and non-long-term. And again, you know, we're trying to get some other data on national trends in terms of the breakthrough cases and what that looks like, to give you all a better picture of what's going on. Positivity rates increasing. I'm not really sure about this number, because it may be that we have more symptomatic people testing and less asymptomatic people testing, which may be driving the positivity rate up in this. And then, you know, we continue same numbers in terms of vaccination status as a county. We're improving slightly as we continue to move forward. And that's it. You know, in terms of the update, it really, we are pretty much in the same spot. We've seen an increase. Longmont is continuing to be the largest percentage of cases in Boulder County. And we're trying to get more data to try to identify what that is. It did look like that younger population was a big part of it early on, and now we're seeing it in some of our older populations. And so we'll continue diving into the data to provide you all with more information. Be happy to answer any questions you all have.
Thank you, Harold. Councilmember Hidalgo Faring.
Okay. Thank you, Harold, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So in that slide with the positivity rate, the 4.7, so you were saying you thought that that number could be lower, or?
So I think for me, the challenge is when you see who's being tested. So if
Okay.
you drive by some of the testing sites, you're not seeing the number of cars that you were seeing
Yes.
at those testing sites. And so if you have more people who are getting tested who are symptomatic or other issues, and less people just being tested because they want to see if they have it, then that could shift that percentage a little bit.
Okay.
And so what I want to dig into with Marika on this is really now start looking at how many tests are performed,
Sure.
because these numbers can show different things as you're digging into the data. And so I just know anecdotally that I'm not seeing as many people in the lines, which tells me what we're probably seeing are those that are either exposed or symptomatic.
Yep.
And that may be driving that up too. So I have some more
Okay.
questions on this.
So
I don't know
then,
for sure.
would the difference, based on what we've seen over the last 18 months and how this data kind of ebbs and flows and evolves, would it make a huge difference in that percentage? Or would it just be like, by a few tenths of a percent?
It's hard to say. I mean, when we were prior to,
Yeah, I know.
it could make, it could make a difference depending on what you're seeing. If you think back to the number of people we saw lined up at the fairgrounds early on in testing, to where the lines were really moving all the way around, and now you can almost drive up and get straight in line.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty significant change in volume, and that's why I want to look into this number a little bit more to really see what's happening in that. And it's not as many, it's, the percentage of the total being tested is what it is. The question is, for me, are we seeing fewer people testing to ensure that they don't have it compared to what we've seen in the past? And these are more directed by being exposed or being sick or some of those issues. And so there's a nuance to the question that I want to ask them.
Okay. And then the other thing, I guess, what is the trigger point then for us to go back virtually? The county has said kind of continue on as we're doing now, but every indicator we're higher transmission, we're above the line.
Meaning the schools?
No, us, our city functions, just everything in general.
So what I will tell you is operationally we have done some of that simply because we are seeing breakthrough cases. We know we do have people that are unvaccinated, and so we are, in terms of some of our meetings, doing it just because we don't want to impact our ability to provide services. Because depending on the nature of what happens, if you have somebody that tests positive, if you're vaccinated, you don't have to be quarantined, but you have to watch your symptoms. And if you become symptomatic, then you have to stay at home and then you have to get tested.
Sure.
But if you're not vaccinated, then you have to go on the 7 to 10 day quarantine. And I think it's 7 days with 2 positive tests, Sandy, or 7 days with 1 negative test. But then you have to, we lose somebody for a week. And we have had instances within our organization where we've had crews that have had multiple people in that situation, and it creates an operational challenge for us. And so we're trying to be mindful of that as we're moving forward. Honestly, it's also easier at times to have our meetings via Teams, and not,
Yeah.
deal with everything else. And
exposure.
so we've done that internally. For you all, I will say it's interesting because today in the admin call, I know that there's some other cities that are, they're still virtual, that are contemplating coming back, but they talked about potentially using the vaccine requirement program as a method to come back and not be masked. And I know that Boulder County Legal Department, they're going to probably reach out to Eugene, indicated that cities that are interested in exploring this, they'll bring everyone into a meeting, and that was something that I was wanting to learn a little bit more about, but didn't get some questions answered, but that is something we can consider. So every city's looking at different things in this process right now. Sandy, did I? No, so not capacity restrictions, so it's not on this chart. But the other chart where the capacity restrictions, that's the one with the state where when you cross the high point of the line,
Yeah.
we're not near there. And so this is really what they're looking at now in terms of where we are, and it's really all about the masking piece.
Okay. So, yeah, I just am trying to figure out, you know, I'm hearing so many mixed messages still between the state, what's happening in other states, you know, even among, you know, within our own community. So, you know, I guess I want to know, and I feel like, you know, even though we had this discussion and decided to remain in person now, I think that can still change at any time. I don't want to just like take it off the table. But I guess I really want to know what is the hard trigger point where we like, okay, you know what, the safest thing for us to do would be to go back virtually.
I think it really would be the health department's limiting capacity at indoor public events. I mean, that would be the one that's first and foremost that we would go, yeah, we need to do this. Now, there's going to be degrees in between this, and obviously you all have talked about that.
Yes.
But I think what we'll do is just continue monitoring the data. We don't know what's going to happen. I mean, so if all of a sudden there's another variant that creates issues similar to what the variant that Delta did, but that's much worse, and we hear that news, we're going to inform you all about that and what we're hearing from the medical community, so we can have an informed conversation. And so we will be bringing that to you all as we hear it real time.
Okay.
But ultimately, it's again your decision in terms of what you want to do.
Okay. So, okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Hidalgo Faring. Just to reiterate, unless there's a specific health order from Boulder County Health, it will be up to us to make, and as we've already gone through a couple iterations of votes on that, it'll be up to us to decide how we best decide to move forward with our meetings. As such, Councilmember Peck, you are next.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So Harold, maybe you can add a little bit to this, but what I've heard is the efficacy of Pfizer and Moderna are coming to their end. They're getting less and less effective if you've had the second vaccination, which is the reason for the booster shots. Pfizer, at this point, is the only one that is giving the booster shots. Moderna is not. But it is my understanding that Thursday or Friday, there will be an emergency. FDA will say that Moderna can start giving the booster shots starting Thursday or Friday. So I just wanted to put that out there. I've been looking for the booster shot for Moderna, and no one's giving it to us. So I just want to put that out there for the public, that pay attention if you had the Moderna and are looking for a booster. Watch Thursday and Friday. They should be an emergency order that those would be available.
Okay. Yeah, we'll let you know when we hear something on that one.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Councilmember Martin.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just wanted to clarify something based on discussions that happened a couple meetings ago. Failing a policy change from Boulder County Health or a declaration of the state of emergency by the city manager, is it not true that this council, before the election, actually can't change its own status in terms of meeting in person. Yeah, we voted and we declined to allow a second vote based on parliamentary rules. So I don't think we can change our own status. Something has to happen externally at the state or county level.
Yeah, or I'd have to come and say, hey, council, we're hearing something, and it's our recommendation that change condition, I
Yeah.
think, is really the
Because I heard, that was the question I heard in what Councilmember Hidalgo Farring
Okay,
said.
yeah.
Can we change it? No, we can't.
not until the new council's in place, but a change condition I could bring to you all.
Fair enough. I think we've gotten some clarity, both procedurally as well as with county and state mandates are concerned. We will move on now, please, to item 7, special reports and presentations. Let me pull something up real quick here, as I would like to read them. So we are moving on to special reports and presentations, and we have a couple proclamations tonight, which I'm very happy to read. I feel sorry that Mayor Bagley is not here for these because I'm sure that he had, a good amount to do with them. Outside of that, they are very important, and I would like to move on. This would be 7A, a proclamation designating the month of October 2021 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Longmont, Colorado. Whereas domestic violence impacts countless citizens of Longmont without regard to age, sex, ability, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, socioeconomic status, or religion, it affects their children, families, and entire communities. And whereas the city of Longmont has seen a record number of cases of domestic violence in the community during the COVID pandemic, making it the #1 crime in our city. And whereas racism, homophobia, transphobia, and discrimination based on physical ability, nationality, or other factors help perpetuate domestic violence and make finding safety even more difficult for some victims. And whereas domestic violence and intimate partner violence can have lifelong consequences emotionally, mentally, socially, spiritually, and physically. Violence harms the core of the human spirit. And whereas the city of Longmont joins with others across Colorado and the nation in supporting victims of domestic violence and share the worthy goals of this month-long observance, sending a clear message to abusers that domestic violence is not tolerated. Now, therefore, I, Aaron Rodriguez, Mayor Pro Tem, on behalf of Brian J. Bagley, Mayor, by virtue of the authority vested in me and the City Council of the City of Longmont, do hereby proclaim October 2021 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in Longmont, honoring domestic violence resilient survivors and the important work done by domestic violence programs and victim service providers. I urge all citizens to participate in activities and programs sponsored by the Longmont Ending Violence Initiative and the Safe Shelter of St. Vrain Valley to work toward the elimination of intimate partner violence. At this time, I would like to invite up, let's see here. I'm sorry. It looks like Kim Hurd, I believe, from Levi. And what's the other one? Jackie List from, yes, from Safe Shelter of St. Vrain Valley. Thank you so much. Just a second, there's a button there if somebody could help you if you don't know. What's that? There we go. Thank you so much.
Mayor Pro Tem, council members, thank you very much. My name is Jackie List. I'm the Executive Director of Safe Shelter of St. Vrain Valley, which is a victim service organization that has served Longmont for well over 40 years. We thank you for the proclamation and giving us recognition this evening. Domestic Violence Awareness Month has been, for 40 years now, an opportunity for survivors, advocates, and allies to bring awareness to the complex issues faced by victims, as well as the diverse responses necessary to address domestic violence in our community. As I said, this year is actually the 40th anniversary of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which began in 1981 as Domestic Violence Awareness Day. And the original theme of that day, and now the month, is mourn, celebrate, and connect. And so each year in October, we take extra time and space to mourn those who have lost their lives because of domestic violence perpetrated against them by someone who was supposed to love and protect them, to celebrate the triumph of those who have survived and now walk a path of independence, free of intimidation, exploitation, and abuse, and to connect, and hopefully as a community we will do that, in solidarity to do what we can to create a violence-free future. Domestic Violence Awareness Month is our month to celebrate our work, raise our voices, make noise, and call attention to this most serious health and safety issue in our community. To exemplify the breadth and depth of the problem in our town, Kim will now speak to what law enforcement has experienced as they address the issue.
Hi, I'm Kim Hurd. I work at Levi, Longmont Indian Violence Initiative. My office is across the street at Public Safety. And I appreciate very much that you read this proclamation also. Part of my job, I keep the statistics for the police department on domestic violence in the city. And as we mentioned, it has gone up last year, this year. As of today, in 2021, there have been 813 calls for service for domestic violence with 378 arrests. It's a 10%, that's a 10% higher amount than last year, even in 2020. And this doesn't even take into account the unreported calls that, like, the safe shelter takes care of, or that people don't even report to anybody. So approximately 40% of our domestic violence cases involve repeat offenders, and almost 30% of the time, children are involved in these cases. So it really affects our children in the community. So we've worked together, Safe Shelter and Levi, for many years to try to bring this very serious, #1 public safety issue to the forefront. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. It's amazing. I think that we will uphold our current mayor's precedent and have a picture where we all come down with you. So please come up and accept the proclamation, and we'll have a picture. Thank you. I assume we have to wear them.
Great. 1, 2, 3. And 3 again. Thank you.
I just want to say it's an amazing thing that Levi and St. Vrain Safe Shelter does. I've met with them before, and it's so important. As such, I'd just like to move on to item 7B. This is somewhat inherent to me, as I was a former planning and zoning commissioner. So a proclamation designating the month of October 2021 as Community Planning Month in Longmont, Colorado. Whereas the month of October is designated as National Community Planning Month throughout the United States. And whereas community planning can help manage the constant change that affects all places, provide better choices for how people work, live, and play, and provide opportunities for all residents to be meaningfully involved in making these choices that determine the future of our surrounding environments. And whereas the American Planning Association and its professional institute, the American Institute of Certified Planners, endorsed National Community Planning Month as an opportunity to highlight the contributions that sound planning and plan implementation make to the quality of our settlements and environment. And whereas The celebration of National Community Planning Month gives us the opportunity to publicly recognize the many valuable contributions made by professional community and regional planners, as well as the participation and dedication of the volunteer members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And now, therefore, I, Aaron Rodriguez, Mayor Pro Tem, on behalf of Brian J. Bagley, Mayor, by virtue of the authority vested in me and the City Council of the City of Longmont, do hereby proclaim October 2021 as National Community Planning Month in Longmont and extend our heartfelt thanks to those volunteers and professionals for their continued commitment to public service. At this time, I'd like to invite up Planning Director Glenn Van Niemwegen, as well as anybody else that would be liking to make some comments, and anyone else that is involved, because there's quite a few of you apparently.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez. Glenn Van Niemwegen, your Planning Director, and we certainly appreciate the support that the council has given, not only your citizen planners, but your staff planners. And we do have a group here, and I'll just introduce them very quickly. From our Planning Commission, we have Michael Poland, who is our Vice Chair. He's here. There he is. And we also have Anna Lucacci, who is alternate member over here. I'm getting whiplash here. I don't know if anybody else come in from Planning Commission. That's good. And then from our staff, I guess going down the road here, we got Phil Greenberg with our transport. Green. I knew it. I knew it. Sorry, a million sorries. Hannah Mulroy, Zach Blazak, Ben Ortiz, and this one I'm going to mess up, Peter Chesky. Pretty good. And then over here, Aaron Fosdick and Brian Schumacher. So we are really grateful that the APA put community planner, because it's not just us, it's certainly our community, probably our most important planners. So I want to bring Aaron up to talk about a little bit about a program we're going to bring back next year to kind of bring more folks into the fold if we could. So, Aaron.
Thanks, Glenn. Nice to see you all. Aaron Fosdick, Principal Planner. Glenn just asked that I share, we're really excited in honor of National Community Planning Month to let you know that we're going to be bringing back the Longmont Planning Academy. Many of you may recall that we launched that in 2018 and had 2 great sessions before we put the brakes on due to COVID, like many other things, but we're gearing back up. We've got a lot of new staff that are interested in participating, and so we've had some great feedback from the community. We have a few members that are now serving on advisory boards and making great contributions in the community, so we're excited to be bringing that back in early 2022. I also want to mention that our transportation planning group with Phil and Ben and Lauren have been working on a community bike ride, so stay tuned for more information. That'll be on Friday, October 22nd. We'd love to have you join us, and if you don't have a bike but want to participate, we could probably help you with one of our employee bikes, so contact one of us and we can help with that. And thanks for your continued support.
All right, thank you very much. As such, I think we're going to take a picture, so everybody come on up and let's do that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. We will now be moving on to first call, public invited to be heard. Just to let you know, you will have 3 minutes. Please state your name and address before you begin speaking. Brief segue, we will have a little break after public invited to be heard for those people wondering. Anyway, because the list is very short. As such, just to let you know, anybody that didn't get signed up on the initial public invited to be heard, you may speak on second readings and public hearings on items, as well as you will be allowed to speak at these. It is a regular session meeting, so you'll be able to speak at the final call, public invited to be heard. As such, Mr. Strider Benston, you are up.
Greetings, Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez and council. I discovered something really shocked me yesterday, and maybe there's a different answer, but I discovered there's no history of newspapers in our library. And I volunteered for the library board about 8 or 10 years ago, before I discovered there was a pact to prevent me from being on any board. But anyway, I went to ask, did you burn all the last 50 years of our newspapers, New York Times and everything? And I got the approved word, we recycled them. I think if I had been on the board, maybe I would have had something to say about that. But the abrogation of history and truth and everything is going full force in this climate. If the death cult, which used to be a political party, gets back in, we will not be, over time, having public meetings like this. Everything will be top down with voter suppression and the incitement of insurrectionary violence and such. Where did this come from? Well, in that yesterday's New York Times, there is a Pulitzer Prize-worthy article about how to destroy a public school system by essentially the Ku Klux Klan on Facebook in Prince Anne County, Virginia. And also there's an article about City of London is hiding the world's stolen money. What is that? There has been a 60 or 70 year campaign in this country to steal the entire wealth of the country and put it in offshore islands, Cayman Islands, City of London, South Dakota, British Virgin Islands and such. And then when there's any initiative in this country for social justice, economic justice, child care, health care, climate, they say there's no money. We have no money. Where did the money go? It all went into the pockets of the corporation and the banksters who are using it to destroy the democratic republic that we've had for 250 years. 50 years ago in the Ivy League schools, most of the students were in humanities, public service, or the sciences. Now they're mostly in financial services. What does that mean? How to steal all the public weal. That's why Trump was such a buddy of Vladimir Putin. Thoreau said, it's fine to build castles in the air. Now it's time to put foundations under them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Strider. At this time, we'll take a 5-minute break and we'll reconvene for item 9, which will be the consent agenda. Thank you. Thank you very much. It appears that council is back, so if, staff is ready to go, we're going to move on to consent agenda, introduction and reading by title of first reading ordinances. Clerk Quintana, can you please read those for us?
I can, Mayor Pro Tem, probably not with the same flair, but I will go for it. Item 9A is ordinance 2021-50, a bill for an ordinance making additional appropriations for expenses and liabilities of the city of Longmont for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2021. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for October 26, 2021. Items 9B, 1, 2, 3, and 4 are the 2022 budget ordinances. Ordinance 2021-51, a bill for an ordinance fixing and levying taxes upon the real and personal property within the city of Longmont for the year 2021 to pay budgeted city expenses for the 2022 fiscal year. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for October 26, 2021. Ordinance 2021-52, a bill for an ordinance fixing and levying taxes upon the real and personal property within the Longmont Downtown Development District for the year 2021 to pay budgeted expenses of the Longmont Downtown Development Authority for the 2022 fiscal year. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for October 26, 2021. Ordinance 2021-53, a bill for an ordinance adopting the budget for the city of Longmont for the year 2022. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for October 26, 2021. Ordinance 2021-54, a bill for an ordinance making appropriations for the expenses and liabilities of the city of Longmont for the fiscal year beginning January 1, 2022. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for October 26, 2021. Item 9C is ordinance 2021-55, a bill for an ordinance amending section 4.08.040 of the Longmont Municipal Code on city rebate programs for income qualified residents. Public hearing and second reading is scheduled for October 26, 2021. 9D is ordinance 2021-56, a bill for an ordinance amending section 14.24.040 of the Longmont Municipal Code on stormwater system charges. Public hearing and second reading is scheduled for October 26, 2021. 9E is ordinance 2021-57, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the city of Longmont to lease the real property known as Vance Brand Municipal Airport Hangar Parcel H18C to Aerosphere, Inc. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for October 26, 2021. 9F is ordinance 2021-58, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the city of Longmont to amend the lease for Vance Brand Municipal Airport Hangar Parcel known as Hangar Parcel H71. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for October 26, 2021. 9G is ordinance 2021-59, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the city of Longmont to amend the lease for Vance Brand Municipal Airport Hangar Parcel known as Hangar Parcel H74. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for October 26, 2021. 9H is ordinance 2021-60, a bill for an ordinance approving an economic incentive agreement with MBio Diagnostics, Inc. Public hearing and second reading is scheduled for October 26, 2021. 9I is ordinance 2021-61, a bill for an ordinance amending section 3.04.885 of the Longmont Municipal Code, adopting an amendment to the City of Longmont Police Employees Pension Plan and Trust Agreement. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for October 26, 2021. 9J is ordinance 2021-62, a bill for an ordinance amending section 3.04.885 of the Longmont Municipal Code, adopting an amendment to the City of Longmont Fire Employees Pension Plan and Trust Agreement. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for October 26, 2021. 9K is ordinance 2021-63, a bill for an ordinance amending section 3.04.885 of the Longmont Municipal Code, adopting amendments to the City of Longmont Old Hire Police Pension Plan and Old Hire Fire Pension Plan. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for October 26, 2021. 9L is ordinance 2021-64, a bill for an ordinance amending section 3.04.885 of the Longmont Municipal Code, adopting an amendment to the employee contribution requirement of the City of Longmont General Employees Retirement Plan. Public hearing and second reading scheduled for October 26, 2021. 9M is resolution 2021-103, a resolution approving a certificate of compliance in support of an application requesting coverage under the FPPA defined benefit system administered by the Fire and Police Pension Association for new firefighters in the City of Longmont. And 9N is resolution 2021-104, a resolution of the Longmont City Council approving the intergovernmental agreement between the City of Longmont, the County of Boulder, and the City of Boulder for the Bureau of Justice Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program Award.
Very good. I definitely allow the city clerk to take a drink of water after that. That was a killer list of first items. Anyway, council members want to pull any items? It looks like council member Christensen is actually first.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez. Yes, let's hear it for Don Quintana. We made it halfway, almost halfway through the alphabet, or maybe more. I would like to pull items D for a couple of questions and item E for one brief question.
All right, thank you. D and E have been called. Let's see here. Councilmember Peck.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I move the consent agenda minus D and E.
All right, we have a motion to pass the consent agenda by Councilmember Peck, minus items D and E, seconded by Councilmember Waters. Let's have a vote. All those in favor, push yay. All those opposed, push nay. Okay, we will verbalize this vote. All those in favor of passing the consent agenda minus D and E, say yay. All those opposed say nay. Okay, the consent agenda passes 6-0 with Councilmember Bagley or Mayor Bagley absent. Councilmember Christensen, did you have another comment to make, or you just, okay. Very good, very good. Just moving on. There's no items from staff for removal, I take it? Okay. If not, we'll move on to item 10, ordinances on second reading and public hearings on any matter. Item A, 10A, ordinance 2021-49, a bill for an ordinance approving the concept plan amendment for the Barrett Utilities Sales and Service Incorporated Clark annexation located at the northeast corner of State Highway 66 and Erfurt Street. Are there any questions from council on this item? Seeing none, we will open this up to public hearing on ordinance O 2021-49. Is there anybody who would like to speak on this ordinance at this time? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Any discussion, or can I get a motion from any council on ordinance 2021-49? Okay. Ordinance 2021-49 has been moved by Councilmember Waters and seconded by Councilmember Martin. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's take a vote. All those in favor push yay or push nay if you are against. Working on it. Well, keep trying. Okay. We'll see. I assume where we're going here, but I'd just like to give a good college effort there on the new system. So, okay, there we go. We got the ordinance 2021-49 passes 6-0 with Mayor Bagley absent. Thank you so much. We're getting there. We're getting there. All right. Item 11, items removed from consent agenda. We will start with, it appears, item D, which, to just reread, is ordinance 2021-56, a bill for an ordinance amending section 1424-040 of the Longmont Municipal Code on stormwater system charges. And this was pulled by Council Member Christensen, and your mic is good.
Thanks, Mayor Pro Tem. A constituent asked me to ask a couple of questions, which I think are good. One is, this is a fee, so I believe, right? Okay. She was wondering if some of this money could be used to complete the RSVP project. It's my understanding that a fee can't be used for anything but what it was designated, so I don't know if the stormwater would have anything to do with that.
Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez, Councilmember Christensen. This is a fee for service.
Yeah.
It's a monthly fee. It is designated for.
Yeah, stormwater.
At
Okay.
least, yes, a significant portion of the increase is to complete the RSVP project.
Oh, it is?
Through
Okay.
Hover, yes.
Okay, good, good, okay. And the other question is, will landholders and developers also get an increase? This is for everyone, not just residents, right? Okay.
That's correct.
All right, so it includes everyone. Okay, thank you very much, Becky.
Sure.
All right, thank you very much, Councilmember Christensen. Councilmember Peck.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I also had a question on D, and this is basically going out to the future. I see that we are projected to go through 2024 for fees, and I'm wondering, do we have any type of an escrow account to project structural damage or repair from 2025 on? Are we always going to every year come back and increase these fees? Are we escrowing any funds going forward?
Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez, Councilmember Peck. We anticipate that the storm drainage master plan will be completed in 3 years' time, at which time we'll take a more comprehensive, probably 20-year look at the capital plans required to maintain the system throughout that whole period. So we are looking forward, certainly, as we make these financial plans.
I guess my question was, as we look forward and as we figure out how much it is going to cost us to move forward, are we escrowing any dollars in today's environment to address some of those capital improvement projects in the future? Or are we always, in order to get our projects funded, going to have to continually raise fees?
So,
Am I making sense?
yeah, so I think when we look at it, in this increase over the next 3 years, and correct me if I'm wrong, Becky, but this is really to look at what we need to finish RSVP and the stormwater projects that we know that we need to
Correct.
undertake now. In that process, we're going to be doing the stormwater assessment of the entire system, which will then set what we need in the future to hopefully allow us to accomplish that.
Okay, just so that's in the mindset.
And if I could just add one clarifying, City Manager Dominguez had it right. The stormwater utility is really no different than your other utilities. We're
Correct.
constantly doing and updating our master planning. What we're in the phase on right now is that next lookout in the master plan. So I don't think it'd be fair for us to say we're going to set money aside. In fact, the money that's going to be coming in under these rates, we are targeting for needed capital projects that we are already aware of.
Right.
So, and it's putting us on the right trajectory to be able to invest at higher levels into the storm drainage system. But I don't think we know today, is it sufficient for the years beyond this next couple, 2-3 years. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, very good. Could I get a motion? Oh, sorry. Councilmember Waters.
Thanks, Mayor Pro Tem. Dale, you want to come back down? I wouldn't have pulled this off, but since it's pulled off, I think it's worth taking a couple of minutes to review, not just for us, but for anybody and for the newspaper, the implications of failing to collect and maintain. And you might give just one example of what happened on Collier this summer, right? As an example of what could be in the future if we don't do this. Because we'll get grilled by some folks about, we're already getting the incoming emails, you goofballs, you're raising fees again. People need to know it's hard to pay the fee. What's harder is to deal with the consequences if we don't. So what if we don't?
I'm Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez and Councilmember Waters. That's a good question, and the best way for me to sort of respond to that is, again, your storm drainage system is old. There are some components of that are probably approaching 100 years or more, especially in the core area of the city. those are the areas that are going to fail first. The stormwater system also relies on sort of a myriad of different conveyance systems. Some of the old irrigation ditches that used to go through the city are used for storm drainage. And unfortunately, on some of those systems, some of the materials that were used were not the materials that we would typically put in. They use things like more corrugated metal pipe instead of concrete pipe. And so it's really a combination of things. And so I think what we've experienced up on Collier Street, you know, I can't say that that's an anomaly necessarily. I also don't want to go the other way, right, and alarm everybody, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. But again, our goal is to avoid any severe failure that would result in damage to private property and certainly any loss of life. And so, as council knows, you have strongly supported the RSVP project after the 2013 floods. And I think this community has done an outstanding job of the commitment to protect people from that major severe flooding that we all experienced. I think now what we're, as we're nearing, you know, a further completion on that particular project, I think it's time to refocus back into the infrastructure of the rest of the system. And I think that's what the master plan is going to delve into further. And I think we're doing it in the right sequence. In other words, protecting people from immediate loss of life and danger is one thing, and then maintaining your core infrastructure is certainly important, right? And one we need to stay focused on, guys. This is the long run. This is not an event. This is not just for the next few years. It's really going forward in this utility and in all of your utilities, I think.
Yeah, so what happened on Collier, hopefully it's an anomaly, but it could be an early indicator.
It could
And
be.
we'd want to pay attention, right, to a leading indicator, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, the analogy of that is when we get breaks on the water system,
Yeah.
on the treated water system. I don't know if any of you have had breaks in your neighborhood, but if you have, you know how disruptive they
Yep.
are. And how they always happen either when you're in the middle of the shower or you're about to host your Thanksgiving dinner, right? And so our goal is to have reliable service and high quality service.
So as hard as it is to squeeze out the extra dollars, what's worse is to try to pump your basement out or,
exactly,
you know, to
deal with
recover.
the damage to your property. I think the other thing that's important is that at the same time, council, you're also updating the CARES program, where we are investing far more heavily in that program that is intended to provide relief to those in our community whose income places them in a far more challenging position to be able to pay these fees. And so I think the combination, you're trying to also be mindful of the ability to pay.
Mayor, or Mayor Pro Tem Council, to add to what Dale said, I remember, was it 2012 or 2013, we presented to the then council about the stormwater plan and where we wanted to go. Literally, we were getting, then the flood hit, and we were bringing a capital improvement plan forward, and we had to retract it back, change it completely, and then bring it forward again. And so now you go full circle to, we're coming to the end of this, and now we're bringing this piece forward. And so you kind of see how long it took us just to get through that piece of the recovery.
So just to elaborate a little bit, I believe that as far as my information is concerned, that we didn't start actually even funding, not even adequately necessarily, but the storm drainage concept until '94. Is that correct?
Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez, so the city formed the stormwater utility in the mid-1980s.
Okay.
And we were one of the first communities in the state to do that. And so we took it out of the general fund at that time because, again, it was competing in the general fund with police and fire and library and all the other uses. And they set it aside as a separate utility. Retrospect is always best, right? When you can look back. What we maybe should have given more attention to at the time was sending it off with some sort of a sinking fund or something to help it to be able to stabilize and run as a separate utility. The other thing we did is when it was created, the monthly fee was very low and was really not at a level that was going to allow you to reinvest into the system. So it goes back to the mid-'80s, and really since then, the fee has been slowly increased over time. We haven't adjusted since about 2013, so it's been some time. But you're right, it's the level of investment, I would say, has probably been insufficient to fully take care of all the infrastructure.
Thank you. And I think it becomes immediately apparent in the fact that a lot of people lived through the flood of 2013, not just necessarily the already spoken about sinkholes that we experienced just this year on Collier Street. I just would like one more question answered in the sense that, the papers have reported the percentages that are being increased, but what the actual cost is, because I've heard many different indicators being 30 cents, dollars, whatever it happens to be. So if I could get just the average that any city bill will increase.
Mayor Pro Tem, on the storm drainage side, it's a couple dollars a month, which again, to some people is a significant amount. To others, it's not as significant, but that's about the range on each of those years. It's going up a couple of dollars. It's going from about $13 to about $18. So think of it going up about $5 over that 3-year time period.
Thank you. And as stated, it's been added to the CARES rebate program that we already have in place.
Yes, and the level of offset has been increased in the CARES program.
So yes,
as well.
while we've added it and increased it, we've also added it to the rebate program and increased that as well. Thank you very much. Council Member Christensen, please.
Thank you, Councilman Waters, for making your comments, and Dale and Harold, and also Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez. It's important to, when I see this in the paper and it says it's increasing 14%, it sounds horrific, and yet that's like $2 a month, which is a lot for some people. And that's why we have the CARES program to balance that out. But the truth is that, of course, when the amount of money in actuality is very small, the percentage sometimes looks very large, but it isn't. And so it's a little deceiving. People get needlessly alarmed. And I would like to thank Councilman Waters for saying that failure isn't an option. That is our entire, our basic job as city staff and as city council to make sure everything in this town actually runs. And I know storm drainage seems kind of abstract to most people, but actually, I'm on an old drainage ditch, and when that isn't cleared out, my basement floods, everybody in our town, it all floods, and that causes huge amounts of damage. That only happened during the big flood, and maybe a few other times, but that's what this is for, is to keep all of our property safe and keep everybody safe. So it is something that we basically have to keep investing in our infrastructure, and some people don't think that's, they think they don't want to be taxed for anything. Well, you have to pay for things. That's how we pay for things. So, yes, we have to increase it. It is a small amount, and if you cannot afford to pay it, we will help you. And I thank you for doing this because it's, critical. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Christensen. Councilmember Hidalgo Ferring.
Really quick, before you leave, before you go sit down. So just remind, oops, I'm stuck here. So just remind the public too how they can access the CARES. There was an ordinance that we just passed to increase, to make up for the difference for folks who are needing the assistance. And, this is something that I'm really in support of. I think this really helps to bridge those barriers. So please, just to have in public record, how can people access CARES if they're in need?
Yes, absolutely. Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez and Councilmember Hidalgo Faring. A simple way to access the CARES program is through our website, searching Longmont CARES. There's a simple form you can fill out there. Paper forms are available at the utility billing window, as well as some other locations throughout the city, including the senior center and the youth center. And there's also a phone number to call if neither of those options is convenient for folks. Unfortunately, I do not know the phone number, but it's on the website.
It's on the website. Okay. Thank.
Yeah, it'll be featured in City Line in upcoming
Oh,
months as
perfect.
well.
Thank you.
so.
So look in your bill, when you open up the bill, you could see City Line and how to access CARES for anyone who's in need of assistance.
Yes.
So thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Councilmember Hidalgo Faring. At this time, I'll move ordinance 2021-56. All right, it's been motioned, it's been moved by myself and seconded by Councilmember Martin. For all those in favor of ordinance 2021-56, press yay. For those opposed, push nay. All right, the motion passes 6-0 with Mayor Bagley absent. We'll be moving on to the second pulled consent agenda item E, ordinance 2021-57, a bill for an ordinance authorizing the city of Longmont to lease the real property known as Vance Brand Municipal Airport Hangar Parcel H18C to Aerosphere Incorporated. This item was pulled by Councilmember Christensen. As such, Councilmember Christensen, the mic is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm sorry to ask this because I know right now, unfortunately, we have no airport manager yet, but so I have to ask you. But yeah. Anyway, I just want to know who's at the airport and what they do. So I couldn't figure out who Aerosphere was and what they do.
So Marika may have to help me on this one. I think Aerosphere is the one that does the imaging. Is that correct?
Oh.
Or is that a different one?
Good evening, Mayor.
Mapping?
Pro Tem, Councilmember Christensen. So Aerosphere is actually one of the flight schools on the field. They also have a simulator, but they do a fair bit of flight instruction and aircraft rentals as well.
Oh, I think I went out and saw them.
When we went on the
Yeah.
tour, it's actually, I
Yes.
thought it was the mapping is because they're actually, I think, right
Okay.
behind the
Yep,
mapping.
they're next to the
Oh, yeah,
service.
that's, yeah, thank you. That's very interesting. Yeah, right.
Okay, if there's no further questions, or if you'd like to make the motion.
Yeah, I would move ordinance 2021-57.
All right, the motion ordinance 2021-57 has been moved by Councilmember Christensen and seconded by Councilmember Hidalgo Faring. Let us vote, please. All those in favor, push yay. All those opposed, push nay. The ordinance passes 6-0 with Mayor Bagley absent. We will now be moving on to general business. Seeing that there is none, we'll be moving on to item 13, final call, public invited to be heard. Are there any members of the public that would like to speak who have not already spoken, or even if you have, you can speak again? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item 14, mayor and council comments. Ooh, we got a few here. Let's see. Councilmember Christensen, you rang in first. It's a hot button.
Oh, boy. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilman Waters mentioned Mr. Katz, who wrote the new localism. The Brookings Institute and Sarah Levinson brought Mr. Katz to town, so Sarah and I drove him around all day long, and I got to talk with him, and that was very, very interesting. He was quite amazed that huge swaths of our town had been declared, including my neighborhood and many other people's neighborhood, had been declared blighted. So anyway, he was surprised at how this was being played out locally, but he was very interesting, and I got an extra copy of the new localism that is upstairs in the mayor and council room, if anyone would like to read it. It's a really a very useful thing, I think, for municipal planners and policymakers to read.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Hidalgo Faring.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So I just wanted to update. Last Saturday was the Dia de los Muertos kind of museum kickoff over on near Main Street and 4th. And both council member or Mayor Pro Tem Rodriguez and I co-emceed the event. That was pretty exciting because I'm usually behind the stage, not in front, and it was kind of weird. But it was fun, so he had my back, so I appreciate that. But I just wanted to let folks know that the exhibit is going on for October 9th through November 7th. So get out there to the museum to look at the ofrendas, the offerings, altars, and other work by local artist Mario Olvera. And also, Longmont 150 is still going on through January 9th. So if you can get a chance to get out there to the museum, I would highly recommend doing that. So, thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Hidalgo Faring. I will say that even for me, it was extremely educational in the sense that my family background is San Luis Valley. It's Castellano Spanish, and so having to learn and ask about Nahuatl pronunciations, Azteca pronunciations was very interesting to me. Anyway, moving on. City manager remarks.
Comments, Mayor, Council.
Thank you. Eugene, do you still have those green headphones, and are you still awake?
Yes to both.
Yes to both.
And no further comments.
And no further comments.
Mayor Pro Tem.
All right, very good. At this time, I'll take a motion to adjourn. All right, it has been moved by Councilmember Waters and seconded by Councilmember Peck. All those in favor say yay. All those opposed say nay. The motion passes 6-0 with Mayor Bagley absent. We are adjourned.